This room is always a little challenging. Okay, go ahead.
Ready to go? Great, thank you. This meeting is being meeting is being conducted with a virtual component. Anyone wishing to address the committee virtually may join the meeting online at https://mountainview.zoom.us/j/84754933-805 or by dialing 669-900-9128 and entering webinar ID 847-5493-3805. When the chair announces the item on which you wish to speak, click the raise hand feature in Zoom or dial *9 on your phone. When the chair calls your name to provide public comment, if you are participating via phone, please press *6 to unmute yourself. Any emails received by 8 a.m. today were forwarded to the CPPC. Emails received after 8 a.m. will not be read during the meeting, but will be entered into the record for the meeting. Recently, regional and local elected and appointed bodies have been subjected to disruptive, racist verbal attacks by anonymous callers during virtual public comments. The city of Mountain View is fully committed to racial, religious, and cultural equity and justice, as we strive to create a welcoming, safe, and inclusive community for all. This advisory body or commission welcomes respectful and non-threatening public comments regarding matters over which the committee has jurisdiction. Comments deemed otherwise pursuant to the Council Code of Conduct and the Government Code may be grounds for immediately terminating a speaker's comment period. And Ms. Thomas, you're ready. Let's conduct the roll call.
Yes, Chair Ramirez.
Here.
Mayor Showalter.
Here.
And Councilmember Higgs.
Is absent.
Absent due to a prior city commitment.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item 3, minutes approval. CPPC meeting minutes from April 25th, 2023. Does anyone have any comments or questions about the meeting minutes?
I move approval.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak regarding the meeting minutes?
Are there any members of? Yes, there are 3.
Seeing
On Zoom.
on Zoom. Seeing no members of the public wishing to speak, I will second the mayor's motion to approve the minutes and we'll take the roll call.
Yes, Chair Ramirez
Yes.
and Mayor Showalter.
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 4, oral communications. Item 4 is oral communications from the public. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the committee on any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are allowed to speak on any topic for up to 3 minutes during the section. State law prohibits the CPPC from acting on non-agendized items. Would any member of the public like to provide comment on an item that is not on the agenda? If so, please submit a blue card, or if on Zoom, click the raise hand feature or dial *9 on your phone. Are there any Zoom participants wishing to speak? Thank you. We will now close oral communications and move to item 5.1, amendments to Council Policy K2, Council Advisory Bodies, defining boards, commissions, and committees, and other minor amendments. City Clerk Heather Glazer will present the item.
Good morning. So I don't have a long presentation. This item was referred to this body by Councilmember Ramirez. The city has historically used the term board, commission, and committee interchangeably. And pursuant to the guidelines set out in City Charter Section 900, there are specific requirements that are being applied to all bodies that the council creates, either through charter or ordinance, resolution, or minute order. In an effort to carve out some bodies that may not need to be subjected to that charter section and its specific definitions of who could serve. This item is being brought forward to allow you to make a recommendation on a definition for committee that may provide the city with a little bit more leeway as to who could serve on members to committees. So there's a red line version and then a clean version for you to consider with the added definition of committee. There some other minor modifications that we made more as cleanup to the policy to align more closely with the practice of either the city clerk's office in terms of recruitment or how the liaisons interact with their bodies. The other thing that the subcommittee should maybe consider today and send also as a recommendation to the council would be any guidance to staff about which bodies may need to be renamed to kind of to kind of fall in line with who we may want serving on a committee versus a board and commission, which is absolutely subject to the city charter, section 900. We're bound by that. So if the subcommittee members have any questions, they can answer.
Thank you. Mayor, if you have any questions?
Yeah, I have a bunch of questions. And so first of all, let's go through. The only one, so basically what we're saying is that if it's a commission, then it's got the charter,
Or a board.
the commission or a board. Okay, so that means the ones that are in question that should have this requirement are that don't, are human relations, PSAB, and tennis. Okay,
Yeah.
right?
Yes.
So they're the sort of the outliers, okay. And the top three, as I understand it, that library, UPC, planning commission, and the Parks and Rec are three things that are required in the California Constitution for every city to have, aren't they? Was my understanding.
I'm not sure about constitutional requirements for those. I know that there are some cities that don't have those, so I don't think it's a constitution.
Okay, I was-
Constitutional requirement, but they are created by the charter.
Yeah.
So those are, those we can't amend really in any
Right, and
way.
then the rental housing committee, we passed a charter amendment.
Is
so-
also created by the charter, yes.
So that's created by the charter. So that's clear that it's those four for sure. Okay. And all right, well, I went through the red line
Mhm.
and I have a bunch of comments,
Mhm.
some of which are, I think we can go through pretty fast. Is it okay if we just go through?
Let's do questions and then we'll go to the public comment and then come back for.
All right, let me go
Specific
through the ones that are questions. All right. I'm using the red line.
Mhm.
Okay, so it's 6 at the bottom of page 2. Persons being considered for appointment or reappointment must be interviewed at least once to qualify for appointment to any board, commission, or committee. I'm not really opposed to this, but is it necessary to be in here?
What do you mean, is it necessary to be?
Well,
Which part of it, I guess, are you talking about?
I just have, as an environmental engineer, I've always, I've experienced a lot of overregulation. And so I always look to things to say, is that required us to do the job right? I think it's obviously it should be standard practice, but is it required to have an interview? I guess, anyway, so that's one question. I have a question whether it's really, I couldn't think of a time maybe when it wasn't, unless somebody was ill or out of town or.
So if I may,
Uh-huh.
this was added by the CPPC a few iterations ago. I believe that the thought process was more to do with if someone had interviewed once, they didn't need to come back for a second interview. So if you had a situation, and this happened with rental housing, right?
Right.
You ran interviews then you had a vacancy come up later. When we posted the notice of vacancy, we didn't get any new applicants. So you appointed someone from your first round of interviews because
They had
you
already
didn't
been-
have to interview again, right?
Okay,
So that's what this is more aimed at, is that people who have interviewed at least once for the position do not have to come back for a second
Okay.
interview to be
so,
considered.
so what does it have to do with if you served for 4 years
Uh-huh,
and you're being reappointed?
uh-huh.
Does it apply there too?
It could, if they reapplied, the, CARC or whoever the interviewing body was, if it was council, could take that into consideration and determine whether they wanted to consider that person again, since they
okay.
had already interviewed once, but that would really be up to the
Right,
body.
And then I was concerned about what's happening with PSAB. Because we'll go through the names, I guess, later.
Audrey will be here in a moment. So if you do have a PSAP question, she'd be happy to
Yeah,
respond.
Then the personal code of conduct. That is page 5,
Okay.
H. All persons appointed,
Mhm.
all appointed members to a body, commission, or committee must sign and file a personal code of conduct statement with the clerk or designee. What do we use this for?
I don't really know what the genesis of this was, so keep in mind that the red line only applies to where we've removed advisory body in this sentence. This person was already included in the policy. So how you guys got to a personal code of conduct at some point in the past is, I couldn't speak to that because that was before my time. But it's basically, you agree to work and all with
Right, right.
others.
Can we refer to it in terms of if we want to remove somebody, if they haven't, we have the removal
Mhm.
the removal requirement if they don't attend, right? That's the main thing. You don't get kicked off for pretty much anything else. It's just attendance.
Mhm.
So this isn't used to say, you're not behaving, get off. We do have the right as the city council to unappoint somebody if they're misbehaving. I don't think it's ever come up, but
10 years ago, there was the guy who used to serve on the Visual Arts Committee who made anti-Semitic comments. And I think that may have inspired some language.
all right, so that is what it's for.
Thanks.
Okay, it's just again, I don't want to overregulate. Okay, oh, I wondered, on page 6, it talks about training and getting, this is sort of a little bit of a side, and getting paid for that. I wondered, do we have training budgets for the other advisory boards? Do we have training budgets for the advisory boards? No?
No, I don't think that any of the departments that are liaisons to boards, commissions, and committees have a specific pot of money that they're using for training. This most often comes up with EPC when they're
Yeah.
going to, planning commission, training.
And there's also the League of Cities has a convention that,
Yeah. So in order to be eligible for reimbursement for any of that, then they would need to comply with this section.
okay, but there isn't I remember when I was on the EPC, we did have a training budget.
Yeah.
And I used it to take Leadership Mountain View.
Yeah.
And so that was,
Yeah.
I didn't speak for
And
me.
it's possible that CDD specifically has like a pot of money that they're using for training. I can't talk to that. But again, if a member of a board commissioner or committee were to attend the training that was approved, then to be reimbursed, they would need.
Okay. And then, again, being nitpicky, the one right below that, L, the city's conflict of interest code, we decide, everybody has to do a Form 700. Do all the committees need to do a Form 700? I mean, when I think about what they do, why do people have to do a Form 700? They have to do a Form 700 if there's some kind of contractual or decision-making related to a contract that they do. And I was, I was going, right? Isn't that the reason we have it? Basically?
Yeah, so not all boards, commissions, and committees are outlined in the city's conflict of interest code, but that does come before you every 2 years and you are approving it. So that does outline which bodies are required to file Form 700s. Obviously, planning commission members are
Yeah.
required because they're 87-200, they're government code
Yeah.
filers, right? I think then you've got, and if you give me just a second, I can probably find it here.
Parks and Rec would certainly be the heritage.
Yeah, it's basically the
Library board
bodies
would.
that are weighing in on expenditure of city funds that are filing. So members like to your youth advisory committee are not filers, right? You've got a couple, you've got some
Yeah.
legal determination that city attorney's office is making, and that information is always included in the analysis that comes to you when you approve the city's conflict of interest.
Okay.
And I think it would also include, in addition to expenditure of city funds, kind of decisions that could be influenced by members of the public.
Appropriations, you mean, for somebody?
Yeah, so I think it's not every commission.
No.
For sure.
Like I was thinking for PSAP, for instance, I was trying to think of, they don't have any contractual things that go before them.
But they might review on occasion, like there might be some technology that the police department may be interested in, or I'm trying to think of, I don't know if the automated
Block
speed,
cameras?
yeah, did that happen before, just like at a high level, right?
At a very high level, but they weren't making a recommendation
Okay,
to the council.
so is Flock a company?
Yeah,
Flock is the name of the company that makes the automated license plate reader technology that is commonly used.
Okay, so it could be that maybe someone happens to be on the Flock board or does business with
or
Flock.
owns a lot of
Yeah,
stock.
and that, yeah, right, and so maybe that kind of.
Okay, I'm just, I'm just trying to work through it in my head because people ask, you'd be surprised the questions people ask us about these things over time. So I'm just trying to understand why, that, and the 2700, I mean, I've been filling it out since I was on the planning commission and like, what was it, 1982? I mean, literally nonstop, and it's a pain in the neck, right?
Yeah.
I wonder if anybody's ever looked at it, but that's okay, that's all right, it's the law.
Yeah.
I'm glad to do it, but it's just, I mean, it is, and the other thing I was wondering is, has it ever been discussed as a deterrent for anybody wanting to serve? We have trouble, and I've never heard that. Have you ever heard that?
No, but I would again go back to, there's the legal component of this where certain people, depending on the influence they have over the
Right.
decision that either staff is making or the recommendation that's coming before council, are gonna be legally required to file this, so.
Okay, I just wanted to talk about it, so I just sort of understand it better. So,
Thank you. I've got a few quick questions. There are some additional bodies that are not included here, and I'm wondering if they should be referenced, or maybe there's a different location for them. The Investment Review Committee, which includes members of the public, along with the Council Finance Committee, seats, I think, a year. Should that be included here? It's not a charter established body, council established. Where does that live?
I think that's part of the subcommittee of council in its own little bubble. Again, as it pertains to the naming convention, they're already called a committee, and so unless you would prefer that they were subject to the charter section 900 and you want to rename them as a commission or a board, then I don't have a lot of heartburn about where it lives because it's kind of attached to subcommittee and it like I said, it's different category. So.
I don't have terribly strong feelings, but that might be one where it could be better to have like that's more of a comment, I guess. And then what used to be the Design Review Committee is now the Design Review Consultation, and then the ZA and Subdivision Committee. Those are also not established by the charter, but we might want to have some firmer regulations about who can serve. So how, where do those live?
So I will say that the list here is specifically what my office handles, right? So my office takes care of all of these. The ones that you're talking about, the council either doesn't appoint to. So in the case of the design review, that's not something that the council is making appointments
You
to.
don't appoint the tennis advisory board either.
You don't, but that one, we do have involvement with, procurement for. So that's why it's in here. We can certainly add those bodies to a list somewhere, but again, unless you're concerned about the membership and, because this is what the item is really geared toward, is controlling the membership, right? Do you want it to be more lenient and allowing people that are not citizens, not residents of the city, not 18 years of age, et cetera, to serve? Or are you wanting them to be subject to the provisions of the charter section right here? So I would say we could consider those bodies in that context and in this conversation. But these are the ones that recruitment and appointment to have been most concerning.
Okay. I mean, we made the design review committee used to be subject to the charter provisions. So some changes were made to the municipal code update at the beginning of the year, I think, right? I have some recollection of heartburn around that committee in particular.
Yeah, and I would have to go through, I wasn't involved in that project. I would have to go through and read the section of the charter if it's something that, if the code was changed to give staff the authority to create and control the members of that body, then they're no longer subject to either the provisions of the charter or the Brown Act. If it's still a body that's created by the council in any way, shape, or form, it's always going to be subject to the provisions of the Brown Act. And to the extent that you are going to define further committee versus board and commissions, then also.
That's helpful. Thank you. And then I want to make sure I understand. So we have one body, the downtown committee, where historically we've allowed non-residents to participate if they have they own a property or business or something. So that this committee definition is inclusive of participation also of non-residents, right? Or should we make a special call out for downtown?
Correct. No, if you read the definition for a committee, they don't need to be qualified elector, and the qualified elector is a resident of the city over 18 and a citizen.
Thank you. Any other questions, Mayor, before we go to public comment?
Yes, the investment committee, that's the review committee, the design review board, and the ZA. The members of that all have to file Form 700.
So if they're not staff members, so for instance, your investment review committee, yes, they do. The design review committee, I don't know who's serving on that at this time, but yes, in its previous iteration, it did. And again, that's because of the role that they
Right.
played.
Yeah, it seems
and-
like they should.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yes, yes, yes. If it's staff level, that are on it, so like the CA, I think is staff, isn't it? Yeah, and so they would be filing in the context of the staffing level
Right,
designation that
right.
we've done in our.
So yes, they would all be covered.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that's my question.
Thank you very much. Let's turn to the public. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak?
Yes. First we have April Webster.
Hello, April Webster. I've been a resident of Mountain View for 20 Ken. I am not a citizen. I'm actually from Canada, but I have been down, and this is now my, I've actually lived in the same apartment in Moffett, near Moffett Boulevard, since that time. And I am very active in the city, and you know, it'd be great not to have that restriction. And you know, a few things. A lot of people of sort of like the middle demographic in terms of age, who might want to participate are also immigrants. The tech industry is, for better or for worse, employs a lot of immigrants from different countries. I know from my graduating class, you know, after grad school, there was a mass exodus of Canadians down to the Bay Area, and many of them still live here. I know, and just many of my friends in this industry are also immigrants. And so you have, I looked at some of the demographic data for Mountain View. For Mountain View, it's about not quite 50%, but around 43% of the population are immigrants. So that's something to think about if you're not making it possible to have, you know, giving that opportunity to a good chunk of your population, you're not going to get the full picture or everyone's voice. And then I can talk to you a bit about the process to become a citizen. It's taken me quite a number of years. First of all, you come in on some sort of visa. You're usually there. There's a lottery. That's like 3, 4. It's not easy to immigrate into this country is what I'm saying. Usually like 3 to 5 years, you're on some sort of visa, maybe 6 years. And after that, if you find a company who's willing to sponsor you, which isn't as likely right now in this current climate, you get onto a green card. But the process of getting a green card takes another 1 to 3 years working with lawyers who are very slow in the company. And you often have to negotiate that. So it takes another few years. Once you get in your green card application submitted, that paperwork done, I was lucky because I'm a Canadian citizen. It only takes me a year. Folks who may come from India, it takes up to 10 years for them to get their actual green card. It's a hell of a long time and a very, you need to be with it, you know, dedicated to stick with it through that process. And then the actual citizenship itself, I've just now able to apply for my citizenship. I'm assuming, like, I just had another Canadian friend who went through this. I think it took.
April, it sounds like your time is up, unfortunately, but thank you for your comments.
Thank you so much.
Next, we have Mike Casper.
Hi, everybody. Mike Kasperzak, Chairman of the Chamber of Commerce for another month and Vice Chair of the Downtown Committee. First thing I wanted to do is really support the effort to clarify this issue. Historically, the Downtown Committee has had business owners on the committee who were not required to live in Mountain View as long as they owned a business or owned a property in the downtown. I don't think the removing qualified elector is sufficient because if I recall, qualified elector requires residence and that you be a registered voter. And so it's ambiguous then as to whether residency is required. So I would add a carve out, at least for the Downtown Committee, that as long as they own a business or own a property in the downtown, they can serve on the committee, because I think everyone else does have to be a resident of Mountain View. At least that's always been the presumption. I had a couple of other comments about some of the things the mayor raised. And one of those had to do with the interview process. There was a situation 15 years ago where an incumbent library board commissioner was unable to be at the interview and had been told she did not need to be at the interview, but then was told, no, you needed to be there. And so there's sort of a question to somebody you don't know, probably should have an interview, but maybe an incumbent seeking reappointment if they can't make an interview, could be. So I think that needs to be clarified. I would not add requirements of Form 700 to anybody that isn't already required to be, either by city rules or by the state. I can tell you, for one, that I am no longer on any state boards or anything because I don't want to file Form 700 because mine are about 45 pages long. There was an issue about removal from office that came up during the pieces of the Berlin Wall discussion, and that got really nasty. And as for AB 1234 training, I personally don't do that because I don't get paid. There are no funds for downtown committee, and I don't take the shoreline tickets. And I don't want to spend an extra 2 hours doing something that I've already done 20 times. So I'm happy to answer any questions, but I do support overall this revision in clarifying, because we do have a member of the downtown committee who owns a downtown business and has been told he is ineligible to be on the committee because he's not a resident of Mountain View, even though he owns a building and a business downtown.
Thank you, Mike. Are there any other speakers?
Yes, Malika Knight.
Yes, sorry, this is Junaid Qureshi. I dialed in from Malika Junaid, my partner and wife's office. And Mike could not have said it better. I am that owner we own this property in downtown. We purchased it last year, and to our surprise, we were informed that you cannot be part of the downtown committee. So that seemed a very strange setup which Mountain View has, that you can own it, you are stakeholder in downtown, but you are not a participant in helping or improving or participating or being in any form of discussion in the downtown committee. Well, you can still be a public speaker, but that doesn't help much. So yes, I second what Mike Kasperzak said. We should definitely ensure whatever language we use, that at least for downtown committee or anything related to downtown, it's not about the citizens, but also about the property owners of downtown properties. Thank you.
Thank you.
One more, but should we?
We can continue. Actually, I'd prefer to wait for just a moment until our chair comes back, because we have two rather than.
Okay, I have a question. I didn't catch the name of the gentleman who was speaking. Did either of you catch it?
So I have his partner's name. He was logged in as his partner, and I wasn't able to catch his name either. I was gonna go
Downtown committee, we can do that.
recording.
Okay, sure. Anyway, appreciate his comments. I just would like to know his name.
Yeah.
Okay, just a moment. We'll get to the third speaker in just a moment. Thank you, Chair. We've got a third speaker, and we did just wrap up comments. Gentleman making comments associated with the downtown committee requirements. So we'll move to speaker number 3.
Thank you.
Speaker number 4, Peter Katz.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Speaker number 4.
Hi, everyone. Peter Katz, CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, and Junaid Qureshi is the name that you're looking for. He is the co-owner of M Designs. So I only wanted to address the downtown committee, and Mike and Junaid have actually said a lot of it, but let me just add that per the strictest interpretation of paragraph 2, item 2, only residents can serve on the committee. And so we strongly support the recommendation to remove this stipulation. If the overriding criterion for appointment is the city's belief that the person be appointed brings skill, integrity, knowledge, interest, and especially an understanding of the basic obligation to evaluate issues in the broad context of public interest, who better to do that than the folks who are actually on Castro Street and its surrounding blocks? If the purpose of the DETC is to ensure our downtown is vibrant and meets the needs of our residents, our local businesses are the downtown and need to have a voice. However, many of the managers, not just the property owners, but the managers are the ones who need a voice as well. And they are not necessarily residents of Mountain View, thus cannot serve on the committee. Additionally, the Downtown Business Association and the Chamber of Commerce are both organizations totally committed to the goals and intent of the committee and are primarily responsible for many of the initiatives that make the goals happen. Yet their leaders would also be ineligible. The DTC, it directly impacts downtown businesses and vice versa. It's a symbiotic and collaborative relationship. Having no voice at the table simply makes no sense. So we urge the council to formalize the DTC requirements to allow qualified non-residents to serve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No additional speakers. Thank you very much to everyone who provided input. We will now return to the committee for deliberation. Mayor, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, where is that section about the downtown community or about the that was being discussed about the description of
I think it's just
I believe
the
it's just the definition for committee.
very first page.
Yeah.
Okay.
So qualified elector with, we're using the election code definition means United States citizen, 18 years of age or
Right.
older, and a resident of the jurisdiction in which they live. So we're reading committee members as not having to be qualified electors, as not having to be over 18, not having to be a resident, and not having to be a citizen.
So in other words, you're saying that it's only related to committees, so we need to change the name of the committee to not.
No, downtown committee, yeah, committee.
Committees,
So
it's
that's
commissions, yeah.
right. So we're trying to carve out this definition for committees so that you can have more flexibility on members serving, especially that body. And you can think of like youth advisory committee, right? Those are all under 18. So that would benefit from this.
Does it have to apply to all the committees that they not being Mountain View residents? I know in past CPC meetings, that has been discussed, that there are some where that feels important, such as the downtown committee and others where there might be a preference for Mountain View residents.
So what I would remind everyone is the policy is an over kind of framework. And where we further define things based on the policy would be at the resolution level. So if you have a committee where you want them to be able to be non-citizens, but you want them to be residents, we can make that further kind of fine tune in the resolution as long as they fall under this category and they're named a committee. We have the flexibility to be more restrictive, but the least amount of restriction that we can apply is through the definition of committee in this policy. So I would just keep that in mind that we can fine tune what pieces of this definition we want to apply to specific committees, but this should be the most lenient that you want a committee to be so that we have flexibility.
Mayor, do you have any other questions or comments?
Well, I think that theoretically, this does take care of it, in the sense that and it also would include business managers because they could conceivably not be a qualified elector, but they could still fall under the the last paragraph on page 2, however, the overriding criteria paragraph. So I perhaps when we take this to the city council for discussion, Well, I know, we could include in the staff report that the reason we did that in particular relates to, I mean, most often relates to the downtown committee, but could relate to other committees as well. For instance, remember we had, Indian resident who wanted to serve on the VPAC and she didn't feel comfortable taking the constitutional pledge and we could pass on it. But I mean, she was a resident, right? She wasn't a citizen, and she didn't particularly want to become a citizen. That was, didn't seem to be relevant for serving on BPAC. So, I don't know, what do you think? You think we should include language here?
So I would maybe, to clarify and appreciating the city clerk's suggestion, maybe a sentence, something along the lines of members may be non-residents unless specified in the establishing resolution. That be acceptable, or totally open to suggestions, but that way we're making clear that there may be other restrictions imposed at the resolution level, which may not be otherwise obvious based on this definition.
Are we going to have a resolution?
Yeah, so part of what will happen after this comes to you is that we can start bringing resolutions back to you that we needed to clean up some of your resolutions along the way, or in the case of bodies that weren't established by resolution, we need to establish them by resolution. Yes, to your.
So that's coming forward.
But only after this
Okay,
is
so,
adopted.
so would there be one specifically for downtown committee or that included the downtown committee? There would be. So that's coming. Okay, but this is in the, so that if somebody wants to apply now, they can. All right, well,
Would it be helpful to include in the definitions, the definition of qualified elector?
I don't have strong feelings. Maybe that's a good, would you have any concern about defining qualified elector?
No, I mean, I feel like the code is pretty clear, but if the committee wishes to have that extra added, that's.
My purpose in raising the question is that for people who don't know, you gave the clarification that that means US citizen 18 years or older and resident of Mountain View. And so saying that people that there may be members who are not qualified electors. If people don't know what that means, that would define that for them.
Yeah.
So the concern that folks have downtown committee, for example, you know, the comment was, it's not enough to say.
Some people may
Right.
misunderstand or opt out
Right.
mistakenly with the impression that they're disqualified.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
So we'd add that to the boards of commission definition paragraph, and a sentence there,
It could just be a third definition.
or it could be right there.
Yeah, I would just include it in the committee's definition.
Or the boards or commissions where it comes up. It must be a qualified elector. That's the first time it comes up. That really- well, it should be. Okay. that's good. Okay, and we do, you know, I think I particularly like this this overriding criteria statement. To me, that's, you know, that's kind of the crux of it is we really want people who, you know, bring skill, knowledge, integrity, interest, all that stuff. And it's
So you had comments earlier, Mayor, and there were public comments that spoke to this about the Form 700 is perhaps an impediment. Is there any interest in the committee And the city clerk.
Yeah, if I may, again, just reminding the subcommittees that this again is just an overarching framework, and if you read the language for the Form 700 piece of this,
Where's that?
so we're at page 6L.
Okay.
It clearly refers back to the conflict of interest code that's adopted by the council, so this section is only applicable to those bodies that are outlined in the conflict of interest code. As filers, you have a legal requirement to file based on their position. So it's not just a blanket applicability to all boards commissions. This is going to only apply to those that are outlined in the conflict of interest code, which may, change from time to time based on what bodies you have and the role that they play.
Okay, perfect.
Does it include the impact committee?
This one, I can look.
Impact committee is not required to file a form.
All right, no problem then.
I'm gonna be very obnoxious and make a motion unless you have any other comments or.
Well, I'm just wondering what the rest of our job is here. Do we have to go through and try and rename any of these?
I will provide some direction
Okay,
based on, I
good.
think it was
Okay,
the city
yeah.
clerk's suggestion. So if there are, so first of all, thank you for preparing this. I know this is something that has been on in a stack of many other things that you're working on, and I really appreciate the effort and time staff is taking to make sure all of our boards and committees and commissions are in order, including establishing resolutions where they don't exist and modifying them accordingly. I'm also very grateful that you're helping us achieve our goal of increasing eligibility and making it easier for folks who serve our community or live in our community that are able to serve in this advisory capacity as well. So I will move to approve the staff recommendations with two modifications. The first is to include a definition of qualified elector and all of that at staff's discretion about how and where. And then to include, again, subject to staff's discretion and any modifications that you would prefer, a sentence along the lines of under committees, members may be non-residents unless specified in the establishing resolution of the committee, or something along those lines to help people reading this policy understand that there may be additional restrictions spelled out in establishing resolutions, and if it makes sense to include a reference to where a member of the public can find those establishing. And then the other direction I would provide is to have staff return at an appropriate time with name changes to the Public Safety Advisory Board, the Tennis Advisory Board, and the Human Relations Commission to reflect the change in the policy that we're contemplating today.
So move those two committees.
Yes. Yes. Anything I missed, Mayor?
Well, we didn't really discuss it, but on page 5 of the red line, I talk about the loyalty oath to the Constitution of the state of California. That's good. I thought it was the US Constitution. I'm happy.
Oh, yeah, no, it's always gonna be the state. Yeah.
Thank you. Staff have any questions or concerns about the motion? Is there a second?
Second?
Thank you very much. I will add just very quickly, there isn't a list of the bodies in the policy, and maybe there doesn't need to be. But I would like to at some point better understand or have staff contemplate where some of these other bodies live, the investment review committee, the design review consultation, which has been sort of a thorn in my side for a long time. You know, the things to think about how they relate to or don't relate to these bodies. We have kind of a hodgepodge here, right, where we include the tennis advisory, which never interfaces with the council. The council doesn't appoint. We do appoint the investment review committee members. And so it's curious to me that have some in one category and not others when there may be kind of a misalignment here. So there's no direction really, but maybe some help understanding how to think about those additional committees relative to these ones.
And if I may, under the purpose, that was on page 1, that was one of the reasons why we called out that the policy didn't apply to subcommittees or ad hoc committees of the city council. We could broaden that to include whatever category it is that VA, which again, if the council is not making appointments to them, and maybe that's the call out, that if it's not a body that the council is appointing to, then this policy doesn't apply to it.
Which would make sense if we didn't include the tennis advisory.
Tennis advisory board is created by
Right. Well, but we also, we've created these other bodies too.
yeah. So, but I understand what you're saying, but I'm just saying the purpose, we tried to make sure that it was clear that subcommittees, ad hoc committees, none of that, so that would include IRC. None of that is being contemplated with this policy. Anything else that is appointed by the council or created by the council is. So that's where this list in the first page of the report from. That's what this list is.
Would staff be amenable to including an attachment or an exhibit with the list of the bodies to the policy?
We could, under kind of springboarding off of what the mayor said about over-regulation, not that that's a regulation, but anytime there's a change to that, we're gonna update the policy. So as long as that's, something that you're.
I'm not terribly wedded to that. I have been confused by or frustrated by the treatment of bodies, which is not always clear, understandable, or equitable. So I'm not including any direction in the motion on this. It's just maybe in iterative process over time, we can think about where do these live and how are they regulated.
Or Heather, perhaps it could link to a live document that is noted as being updated on an ongoing basis on a website, something like that. That way that it's tied to something that is living, so that if there's a modification, it would be available also for the community to have a deeper understanding as well.
I'll think.
Okay, I'll leave that at staff's discretion. Yeah,
Okay.
whatever makes the most sense.
Yes.
Any final comments or questions, clarifications from staff? If there are none, then let's do the roll call.
Chair Ramirez
Yes.
and Mayor Showalter.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.
Okay.
And sorry, Mayor,
I have another question. Go ahead.
about this item?
Well, sort of following up from this item, yes. You could do it maybe as questions, comments. Following up from this item,
Reopen the item? Reopen the item?
I want to,
yeah.
unrelated to the motion.
Yeah, unrelated to the motion. We're having interviews this Friday. And I would like this policy to apply to all the interviewees.
I wouldn't recommend that because it hasn't come before the council to be adopted. So this is, you're just making a recommendation to the council.
Well, is there, I mean, for instance, I know in particular, there's one individual who's been serving on the library board, who wants to serve on the serving on the visual arts committee, and he wants to serve on something else. And he was told he couldn't interview because he was a city employee, and it just doesn't seem reasonable. In light of, the lack of conflict of interest in. Was there previously anything in here that would?
So city charter section 900 prohibits city employees from serving on boards and commissions. And so in the same way that we've applied the residency requirement and the citizenship requirement, we have applied the employment requirement to new applicants, not ongoing.
So he couldn't be considered as an ongoing applicant?
For a new body, he's ended his term, and so certainly after the council considers this policy and adopts it.
And when will it come to us?
December 17th. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of the appointments are
Yeah.
coming on December 17th.
Appointments are coming on the 17th. We can certainly try to turn this around for that meeting, but given the holiday schedule, we'll definitely try and get it in for that meeting, but it's example, knowing plans to be held on.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Well, I think that's it. That's all.
Thank you very much. I know we're pressed for time, so I'll try and get through the rest of the agenda. So thank you very much. We will conclude item 5.1. And it's good to know that we'll try and get the updated policy to the council. I'm guessing on consent for the end of the year. Item 5.2, council policy and procedures agenda topic update. Deputy City Manager Kimberly Thomas will present this information live.
Thank you, Chair. This is just an ongoing routine item where we update you on pending items before you. As you can see from your memo, items 1 and 2 have been dealt with today. You will have 2 items coming before you. One will be virtual public participation in meetings and legislative bodies. That will be a discussion only item. You will also have the gatekeeper policy coming before CPPC. That is a new item. It has not come before the CPPC before, and that will be coming at your next meeting. And then we'll provide, as always, a routine update on any agenda topics that are before you for that fiscal year. We do anticipate a meeting will be approximately February or March. If the complement of the CPPC adjusts, we'll make sure and take that into factors as it relates to schedule. That concludes trust.
Thank you. Are there any members of the public who would like to speak on item 5.2?
Peter's going to.
Give us just a moment. We don't have anyone.
Do we know, so I see there are 3.
We don't know if they're raising their hands.
Okay.
That's just a moment here.
Well, can I interject with a question?
Go ahead, Mayor.
Yeah, the virtual public participation in meetings of legislative bodies, what do you mean discussion only?
It's discussion only, and Heather will be leading up that item, so she might like to interject and offer guidance on that. But there is already a protocol that is being read, as you saw the chair do today, regarding those potential concerns associated with the impacts on public meetings. And we'll be bringing that before you because that was the direction from our prior meeting. Heather, I'm not sure, City Clerk, if you'd like to add anything to that discussion item.
Also another item that Councilmember Ramirez referred to in the wake of what happened.
Oh, okay, I was just I was just remembering that some of the advisory board weren't able to do virtual
Correct.
meetings. And that, I thought that was more an equipment issue than anything. And I wondered, are more, there was a desire for more of them to be able to have hybrid meetings. Is that moving forward, or it's not related to this?
I don't believe it's related
Yeah,
to this item.
unfortunately, that's another.
All right, okay, that's fine.
You okay, Michael? We just need to, we need to confirm. I'm so
No
sorry.
problem. Another question, I guess, while we wait. So on that same item, in addition to questions about whether technology notwithstanding, there is a policy that governs hybrid participation. So in other words, do we say anywhere does every body that conducts public meetings, are they allowed to have a hybrid component unless otherwise, or should they otherwise have a hybrid component unless there is some reason why they could not allow for virtual participation? Is there a regulation somewhere that says that?
We don't have a policy, which is why the item is coming to discuss. I think maybe Audrey can speak more to kind of the program or, you know, having all bodies hybrid, really able.
That certainly is our intention. I have in the past.
We do have a speaker.
I have in the past been able to review data on which ones currently do and which ones don't and why. I don't have that fresh in my memory. We have definitely communicated to the commissions that it is encouraged and desirable where possible to have communicated hybrid. That's probably what you can say.
Maybe the best question would be, is the intent to develop policy that regulates virtual?
We don't have that on our work plan. Just can't create that policy. So I don't know if that's what you're wanting to refer and discuss at a future meeting.
I'm trying to understand the scope of this discussion. But
It's really to give you a forum to have the discussion you're trying to have right now.
okay, whether there should be a policy.
Which we probably don't want to go deep on now since it's not on the agenda.
Well, yeah, but understanding what it is that we're talking about. Let's go to the public comment.
We have one, April Webster.
Hi, thank you. I may have gotten things mixed up. I thought, is this a comment on whether on hybrid or not?
We're discussing the upcoming items on future agenda. So council policy procedures agenda topics update is the scope of the discussion.
Sorry. I was gonna just comment on the hybrid, but it sounds like the wrong timing. Thank you so much.
No worries. Thank you very much. And there are no other members of the public? Okay, so then I would understand this to mean there would be a policy discussion about the gatekeeper issue. There is not a policy discussion about the virtual public participation. That's just an informational update. And the committee could decide at that point to.
Perhaps.
That's helpful to understand. Any other questions or comments? Okay, then we will conclude item 5.2 and move to item 6, committee staff comments, questions, committee reports. The next item is committee staff comments, questions, and committee reports. No action will be taken on this on any questions raised by the CPPC at this time. Do any CPPC members or staff have comments or questions? I think we've exhausted our questions. So then we will move on to adjournment. This meeting is adjourned at 11:34 p.m.
And I would just like to thank the staff in particular for, a great report